Hello and welcome to Vikings Territory Breakdown. I'm Joe Oberly, senior writer at VikingsTerritory.com, PurplePTSD.com, and that's Mark Craig. He's a Vikings writer, NFL insider, and Hall of Fame selector for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. Stop the presses. Speaking of Star Tribune, stop the presses. Mark, the Vikings beat the Giants in the preseason opener. Wait, on second thought, keep those presses rolling. That doesn't matter. With all due respect to Denny Green and Vince Lombardi. It's not whether you won or lost a preseason game; it's how you played, isn't it?
Sure, if you say so. I was noticing my Packer green here. I didn't
Oh God!
get
Can
some
you
get
go
some
change?
skull. Yeah.
Can you go change? Okay. Um. So, how did the team look in general on Saturday against the Giants?
It's there's been a shift obviously in how teams are. It seems like league wide. How teams approach the preseason. I mean, we saw Brian. We saw uh, Flores going after people. We saw the first team offense at least one series. So I liked it. I thought in general, the thing that stood out the most to me, and I wrote about it on the live blog, was that 3rd and 7 where Kyler Murray makes that really nice throw that Harbaugh challenged and it held up. That was a smooth. He put it right where the receiver needed to catch it. The receiver caught it. The drive continues. And then you contrast that with the very next series and what JJ did. Um, Complete opposite. Like first play is kind of a meltdown. Third down, he panics basically and overthrows his target. Um, Big contrast there, and it's the reason why I went in saying that JJ would play great and make, make the decision look, like people would be arguing, oh, you got to play. I couldn't have been more wrong because JJ looked like a guy who still needs a lot of work, and Kyler looked like a smoother veteran.
Uh, yeah, that's what We only got one series for Murray and the starters, and he did look like he had command. He looked like he was confident and although limited, I'm sure the offense he had. He seemed in charge of it, knew what he was doing. But short sample size. In general, he looked good, but even better, the running game looked good.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
what what did you see? I mean, they started the whole five starting five offensive linemen in there, and they seem to move the ball down the field at will. Of course, only for a field goal, but nonetheless, the running game looked pretty good.
Yeah, I should, as an old school guy, I should have led with that. First play is a sweep to it's kind of the outside zone run, sweep to the left, and you watch how Darisaw and Jackson blocked it up, and the fullback and everything. It's 18-yard gain, and then I think they had another 15-yard gain. So yeah, you even saw. I don't know that I would have gone this far in starting people, but Aaron Jones at his age, but he gets 2 snaps, he gets 2 carries. So it's not terrible. I'm not
You kind
totally
of
offended by that, but that surprised me. Jefferson not playing didn't surprise me. But Aaron Jones playing, I was like, wow, they really are they want to really test this. They want to see this, this new approach to the offensive line, coaching and technique and everything. They wanted to see it with their number one guy, which hats off.
he looked Aaron Jones. Speaking of, he looked like you had said. They looked kind of trimmed down, and on everybody has jump at the beginning, the first preseason game. They should anyway if they're healthy. But he looked good. Jordan Mason looked good. I thought they were both kind of trimmed down, and then Damon Claiborne got the bulk of the carries. He had 12 carries for 34 yards and overall, and that was 10 more carries than anyone else on the team. But that stands to reason, I guess.
Yeah, rookie that you want to see. You want to see him, you know, live in the NFL and as live as it can be. With although defenses are doing more. There's more going on in this at least this preseason game. So yeah, you no surprise that he got more.
Do you what did you think of him? Just in the snapshot we had of him. I mean, he's got obviously he's quick. He's got a little juke to him, a little jitter. But we didn't get to see him go. Open one up, get around the corner and go and break one. But perhaps we will this season.
Yeah, we didn't see him break one, but you could see where that is a potential. That is a, if teams don't play him the right way, that is that's going to happen because he is there's a lot of speed in that body.
Should I just think that this is going to be representative of the season? Not that he carries this much compared to everybody else, but that he is going to get some run this season. That he's not, I'm sure he'll play special teams. I think they had him in the return team, but we're going to see a bit of him in this offense this year.
Oh yeah, I think so. The big play potential combined with the 31-year-old starter, combined with Mason's not really your workhorse 20 carry back. I think there's a way for all. They don't have the Jeremiah Love or someone that you're gonna like our Adrian Peterson obviously that you're or even Dalvin Cook where you're like, hey, that's your number one. You really, as good as Aaron Jones is, he's not. He's past the workhorse. They tried that a couple years ago with him, and it was they gave him too much. It's a nice mix. What the key now is to make sure that you're not obvious. Like you don't telegraph, hey, here comes Claiborne, here they're going to do this, or hey, here comes Mason, they're going to do this. Unless it's like a short yardage, they should be able to. The time has come where if it's 3rd and 1, get the first down. Just no trickery, no 160-pound receiver doing a tush push.
Kevin O'Connell, Mark. Mark, this is Kevin O'Connell.
Well, yeah, I think Kevin O'Connell would like to ditch that part of his personality and be able to actually do it, but he just hasn't had the trust in that he's going to be able to get a yard.
That's a good point. So you brought up the offensive line. What did they protected Murray in the short? One series is all he had, but they protected Murray well and did well in the running game. Were you said, I was going to say, were you surprised to see all starters, but you said they wanted to see what this is. What is this new scheme and how is it working? What did you see from it? What did you see from the line?
Well, it's being played up as the new scheme. They've run the wide zone before, and it's right now. It's how it's being taught. It's how I think Keith Carter is making and Frank Smith. These guys are making a difference in how they're pushing this offensive line, and I'll have a big story on Keith Carter that will finally come out next week and helps explain, just where this guy's been and his reputation and how he's changed a little bit, but he hasn't lost his, the tempo and the drive and making guys uncomfortable. And I think because the talent's there. I mean, there is talent there, especially at the tackles. The number one pick in the left guard, the right guard's a big time, that needs to step it up. But he was a big time spending spree when they went and got free agents last year. The center, he's a big body and he's got a little bit of experience from last year. So they got the talent to do this. They just got to do it.
I don't know how much time you spent watching the offensive line in this game, but you just speaking of Blake Brandel, how did he do? How did he look as the starter at center? Did he look all right? Do what he needed to do?
Yeah, there's no glaring errors or anything. It's a small sample size. It's one of those. I think they can. Typically offensive line's only as strong as its weakest link, and but I don't think he's like a glaring weakness. I think that they can get by with him, and then if he gets hurt, you're gonna. Juergens is there, and then they got the rookie Gavin Gebhardt that they got. So they mean as much as you maybe like to have seen him replaced in the offseason with a free agent or something. They tried that the year before, it didn't work out. They got a broken down Ryan Kelly. I think that he can they can win with him.
One guy that didn't have the best game on the offensive line, Caleb Tiernan, a rookie, I believe had a couple bad penalties that stalled the offense. Should we be concerned about the depth, or is that just a rookie trying to get his feet wet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rookie making his first. Granted, you don't want to see those kind of mistakes, but it's a rookie making his first live action in the NFL. any team, you don't want to get down to your backup tackles. But no, that's a guy that they invested a third-round pick in that guy, so he's got talent. It's just I wouldn't be alarmed by his first preseason game.
I'm also alarmed with offensive line depth for this team, especially with Darisaw struggle in the past couple of years. But hopefully they will stay healthy and won't have to get too much to him. The offense certainly focused on Damon Claiborne, but they also kind of focused on Miles Price. He had a great game as a wide receiver. He got the one-handed touchdown grab from Carson Wentz later in the game, but he wasn't in the return stuff in the return unit. So do you think with talk of him having such a great camp and then him putting it on film here in the game, do you think that race for wide receiver 4 is over now and we're going to see him as that guy and then they'll rely on others in the return game?
Yeah, obviously they're going to keep more than 4, but he's I did a story on him as a returner last year. I was talking to people in his past, high school coach, college coaches, and they were like, there's one guy, and I forget who it was, but he said, "You tell Kevin O'Connell, put him at slot receiver. He won't regret it. Put him at receiver." And I think last year being a return guy was enough to handle, but and obviously they had they didn't need him at receiver as much. I think he is more than capable of being a receiver and being a really good one, I think, especially a complimentary one to what they have in their top 3. I'm excited to see what he has. And as far as him not returning, I think that's because they already know what they got. You'll have two kick returners back there, so they're kind of looking to see who will be the other guy, with him. So and the thing that jumped out at me was when Justin Jefferson was, on the, when that touchdown happened, he was going crazy with Jug. Jug is he got the nickname Jug from, and I asked Matt Daniels last year, why Jug? And he said, because his head looks like a jug. Well, that's how he got his nickname. But he was going crazy for the receiver, which is understandable, being a receiver. But I'm like, hey, say something about Carson Wentz. That was a heck of a. Yeah, I've never seen a touch throw like that from JJ. I know that.
We'll certainly talk. We're going to talk about Carson and the other quarterbacks in the next segment. But Ty Felton has reportedly had a good camp as well thus far, and he was. But he did have a drop in this game from JJ McCarthy. Also, I thought threw a good pass to him on that one, but one of those back shoulder grabs. Ty Felton might have his work cut out for him trying to bypass Miles Price after what we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I think Ty Felton has a place on the team, but he might be wide receiver 5. He's I've seen some catches out there that are nice, and I think the last game of last year I looked at I did like 5 things on like 5 guys under 25 or something like that, and so I focused on him, and he got in some playing time, and there was I think he had 1 catch last year maybe. But anyways, he was open coming across the middle on a slant and would have been a touchdown, I think, and he drops it. And, it was like, it's very small sample size. It's a preseason game, but, that, JJ did not play well, but he makes that catch. They get a first down. JJ gets some more plays. That all factors into how the quarterback looks when a guy drops a ball that, here's a quarterback struggling, with his composure, since he's come into the league, with his accuracy. And so he makes a composed throw, critical, which I think it was 2nd and 20, would have been a first down. And then they go they punt two snaps later. So, that's something that when you're looking at a Ty Felton, Jordan Addison can drop it and you're like, whatever. Justin Jefferson, if he ever played in the preseason, whatever. Even Jennings, but when you get down to Ty Felton, you're like, you got to make that catch, because it's a pressure situation, whereas maybe it's not a pressure situation for those other guys. And
you don't have as many opportunities either, right?
Right. So, that was a bad, I wouldn't throw him away because of that, but it's like, So let's see what we're seeing in camp on the field.
Right. Not much work for the tight ends to speak of, at least the big two, TJ and Josh Oliver. But rookie Matt Bredesen had himself a nice game as kind of a fullback coming out of the backfield and catching passes around. What did you see from him that you liked?
I just think he's gonna. I've said this almost since they drafted him. Has a feel of a guy that it's not a glamour pick. It's not a glamour. What he's going to give you is not going to be you know glamorous, but he's going to be there. You're going to see a lot of him on special teams making really good blocks. You're going to see him on offense. He even touches the ball. I think didn't he have a catch on the first?
Yep, he did.
So he has a catch, wasn't for much, but he's going to be involved, and he's NFL ready for what they're asking him to do, which is, it's a breath of fresh air to look at some of these rookies and go, wow, hey, a rookie class is going to contribute. Maybe not even only this year, but maybe when they're 26, 27 years old. What a novel concept, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's for us Vikings fans. That's good to see some response from the rookie class. So, on that note, let's take a quick break. We'll come back, talk about the defense, talk about more what we saw in this game, and kind of get you prepped for the joint practices that are starting today, as a matter of fact. So, come on back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. All right, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. Talking about the Vikings preseason game, where they it was a typical preseason game. Not much scoring. 13-10 was the score. You've got some exciting plays, like the touchdown to Miles Price, and then you've got performances you want to analyze. So that's what we're doing. And there's some other stuff that happens in preseason games that shouldn't, and that's on the defensive side of the ball. That's the headline. Jamal Adams. Jamal, we hardly knew he comes in here. He makes a name for himself in camp. He's popular in the locker room. The coaches really like what he's bringing. And he starts out. He had a tackle for a loss early in the game, and not much longer later he tears his quad muscle on a non-contact play, and he's out for the season. What a blow! I feel bad for that guy, and I feel bad for the Vikings defense that we looked like they were going to be counting on this guy a little bit.
Yeah, my first thought was, if Harrison Smith is anywhere on the fence, that I'm sure a lot of other people, they up the ante and say, come on, Harrison, that's whether he comes back or not was always going to be more toward the start of the season. But it's a shame. It's a reminder. He did play 17 games. He came back from some serious injuries. Played 17 games as a linebacker with the Raiders last year. But it's also a reminder that when these guys start getting older, not that it couldn't happen to a younger player, but
yep.
And you look at the injury, and it's one of those typical injuries where I think your mind's going faster than your body can go, and you making that step, and it's about all of a sudden the leg buckles, and then you kind of just know it's like, oh man.
Kind of interesting. I mean, that's what he just came off. Well, he played last year all 17 games, but prior to that, he had tore the quad muscle in his other leg. And now here a couple of years later, he tears this one. And I was asking my daughter, who's a nurse, is that a susceptibility? And she says, well, maybe he was favoring, putting too much on the good leg while he was rehabbing the other one, and all of a sudden that thing breaks down. But no, like you say, they're getting older. It's just
and the fact that it was in preseason to me is not a knock against the Vikings, because he was at a point in his career. I mean, you look at Odell Beckham Jr. at the Giants; he's playing in the fourth quarter. While he was a great camp guy, great leader, and all whatever everything else that's being said about him, they still needed to see if he could play, and so
yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up Harrison. I thought about it. I mean, I thought, well, potentially just got a raise if he indeed comes back. But my concern is, I can't believe yeah, I understand a guy his age. He doesn't want to go through camp. We saw it all with Brett Favre, of course, many years ago. But at some point, if you might be keeping yourself in shape all on your own, but you come in this late and you jump into to game action pretty quickly without maybe having a full camp under you. At his age, he's susceptible to an injury himself if he comes back. So,
Yeah,
thoughts on that, and then do you think this will get him in now? This
well, I think if he was on the team, he would have been, there'd have been Justin Jefferson wouldn't have played, and I don't think
yes,
Harrison Smith would have played. Because Harrison Smith doesn't need to play, wouldn't have needed to play in the game. But yeah, I guess you want him running around a little bit, but I think there's still time for that. But I don't know. I mean, Harrison could be sitting at home saying, "What are you guys talking about? Didn't you see how that game ended last year, where they pulled me out and I got the ovation, and they took."
we're waiting for his riding off, and not he wouldn't ride off on
No,
a
he's
floor.
not a.
He would get in his plane and fly off the tarmac. Well, they did. With their open roster spot, they picked up Bryce Phillips, a cornerback rookie out of San Diego State, 6'0", 195 pounds. Is he just a camp body mark, or?
Well, he's a flyer. He already went to camp with the Chiefs. They've already released him, so that's not exactly a ringing endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of those guys probably on their list. And when they went and got undrafted guys, he was pretty close to their cutoff point. And you see what you can get. And it's a constant churning of, can you, keep the when people go down, you got to keep it going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on the upside, and speaking of the secondary, the defense had 2 interceptions in the game. Jacob Roberts and Jacob Thomas got him. And Jacob Thomas, I heard on Monday, heard some reporters saying that he's a UFDA, undrafted free agent, but he was getting some reps with the first team defense. Is that because, I guess I'll ask you, why is that? Are they liking what they see?
Well, one guy had a torn quad muscle, and
Right.
the other guy's sitting at home. Maybe they're sending Harrison. Hey, Harrison, you're a team guy, and we got this, undrafted free agent start. It's just a necessity. I think Jay Ward was in concussion protocol, so
Was he? Oh, good.
yeah, different. You're just injuries have hit at that one position, and so yeah, 22. If I'm sure he's watching this whenever he'll say, oh, they need a safety.
Yeah. Yeah. Get my agent to get him on the phone and get the Vikings on the phone.
And no offense to Harrison, but when you're sitting here, this is an example of why, they have a new general manager, I believe, and how if you're sitting here, with your fingers crossed that a 37 or 8-year-old guy comes back for his 15th year, and obviously is not the same player that he was, you didn't draft well enough somewhere, so.
That's yeah, and that's I guess I forgot what I was going to say, but that's exactly right. They shouldn't be counting on him, and I should say that's why the Jamal Adams injury was such a shame, because it looked like they had a really nice piece in there, and it's gone. We've heard since camp started, or ever since the Jonathan Grenard trade, that the Vikings are going to need some help at edge rushers. They signed Kenny Dyson, outside linebacker, with 1 year experience. What do you know about him? Are they still just looking for someone else to take some reps off these guys that they got rushing the ball?
It's another flyer on a guy. He's a guy that I think was undrafted by the Panthers in 24. Nobody signed him last year. He went to the UFL, and hey, Jalen Redmond's a former UFL guy, so there is some talent that was in the UFL that's untapped. Vikings struck gold with that guy. Maybe this is another guy, but I've said all along, Dallas Turner can look great, in which he has looked really good. Van Ginkel can be healthy and look good, which he has. who's your third rusher? I mean,
Right.
that's a position that you don't play 100% of the snaps, and if you do, your productivity goes down. So they need a third guy, and I don't know that they,
Well, I
and
think
Jake Golday, I think can be that guy, but he's a rookie and he's learning two positions. And is he going to be able to do that? Maybe eventually,
was
but
was was Golday playing both those positions at the same time, because he was very active in that game on Saturday. Had 4 tackles in the game.
yeah, he's another rookie that I feel he's gonna contribute this year, and he's gonna develop into a good player. Between him and the fullback, and I think the guys up front on defense, uh, uh, Demings, my guy Chuck, I love that. That guy's going to be. This is I think, going to be a really good class.
It would be nice. That I think from now on and forever, you'll see if that pans out, you'll see Rob Brzezinski sitting in the war room at.
Yeah, I think Rob should do a hold in. He should just refuse services until they give him the GM job. Because look what he did.
I'm not balancing this salary cap until
Yeah.
you.
I'm not lifting this pencil until you give me a raise.
Speaking of Turner, he in his short stint he had 2 solo tackles, including a sack. That's the same stats for Jay Ward in the game. So Jay Ward is, I don't know, I'm not going to say he's on the bubble because I don't know, but he's been around and he should start producing. He should start doing it, or else he might be on the street at some point.
Yeah, that's right. Jay Ward. How could I forget? I mean, that when he makes that at the end of the first quarter, he makes that sack and hits. It's like, wow, this is not the preseason we've been used to, and I liked it. I liked seeing a little bit of regular season feel to it. It was kind of nice. And if I'm Blake Cashman, I'm like, Dallas Turner got the sack, but I think at least half, 3/4 of that sack is Blake Cashman coming up the middle.
I agree. That was a little bit of a gift sack for Turner, because he was the lineman had him locked up, and then all of a sudden the must have been Ward chased him towards Dallas, and he got him to the ground, which is what he's supposed to do. But a little bit of a gift. You teased it a little bit earlier, but now we want to talk about JJ McCarthy. I mean, small sample size on Kyler Murray for sure, but just for the record, folks, small sample size has never kept us from making comments.
Yeah, well, and JJ's small sample size looked like the semi big sample size from last year.
I agree. I thought he looked like the same guy. I mean, that's really blanket. It's not very in depth, but I just thought we kind of saw the same thing. Some ups and downs, a few high throws again, throwing some from his back foot a couple of times. It was not the best performance, but what did you think? It certainly validated the decision by Kyler Murray.
Well, yeah, the decision, which I never thought the only way that decision went any other way is if Kyler Murray just missed practice or just got hurt or, just completely couldn't perform. That was his job to lose. But in saying that, I expected more out of JJ. I expected, and granted, maybe some of it is he's working with the second string and things aren't maybe not as smooth, going to be as smooth, but, some of the same issues, accuracy, composure. There's one play where he's rolling to his right, and they had a good shot of it I'm sure most people know which one it is.
Yeah.
You can see the receiver drifting, and you're like, man, go. None of us had played that position in the NFL, but we can see it, and we're like, why isn't? And I would just be curious, to sit there with him and say, why didn't you throw it right there? Because there's clearly probably 2 or 3 ticks where it's like, and he throws it, and by that time it's too late. So that's one of his problems, and he seems to be overthinking things, which he did last year. And there were stretches last year when he was there. They weren't long, but when he was healthy and he wasn't overthinking, and when he was just playing, was when he was at his best, and I said he played football really well, but he fell, and so I guess that's part of the process. I still say obviously you don't throw him away. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
If someone came and said, "Hey, first round draft pick for JJ McCarthy," see you, but that's not going to happen. If someone comes and says, "Hey, I'll give you a fifth rounder, fourth rounder, even," to me, it's not enough. So I keep working with him, and you can't assume that Kyler Murray is going to play 17 games.
Right, and that's just it. I mean, he is, you know, I guess it was Pete Bursich. It was saying to the television on the broadcast. He says that ball's got to come out there, and maybe it's like you said, overthinking. Maybe that's what they're trying to do is get him to where this is all second nature, and he's starting quicker on every decision he makes, and I suppose that only comes with reps. But now he's not going to get as many reps in the first team, probably if any at all, that he would have. But that's part of the development, right? That's where they're trying to get him, where all of a sudden these things are firing so quickly that as soon as that guy breaks hold, I got to get it to him. I can't wait for this perfect spot of him to get really open and get it to him. I got to throw it.
Yeah, I mean he's been behind the eight ball ever since he went down with that injury in the first preseason game his rookie year, and he's just never been able to catch up. Because he comes back and then he has all those injuries where he misses all that time, so he's just never. And the train couldn't, it left the station. It couldn't wait for him to be given the job again, a third, a second year, be handed the job. He just couldn't do it because there's too many careers that are, going to swirl down the drain with him that they just couldn't,
Right.
You don't want to take 2 or 3 years off of. I mean, Justin Jefferson is in the prime of his career. He's one of the best players in the league, and he's never won a playoff game, and he's, they need to get. They need to. The team's more important than JJ's development.
Yeah, they got to get Justin Jefferson to be able to play up his ability with a quarterback before he's gone and goes to the Patriots and goes to the Super Bowl with them. But that's beside the point. This whole JJ discussion for me brings up the next question: is Carson Wentz and JJ, who's the backup quarterback? And it's been all over the internet since the game, but he came in relief in the third quarter and scored the team's only touchdown. We talked about that. But he looked good. He looked in command. He looked like the seasoned veteran he is. Perhaps not as overthinking and nervous. He didn't look great, but he looked like a backup quarterback to me. Any thoughts?
Yeah, he looked 33 and experienced, and the other one looked 23 and inexperienced.
Yeah.
But as far as who's the backup and everything, I think you keep JJ as your backup with backup reps because Carson doesn't need, camp reps as a backup quarterback. Carson Wentz can keep doing what he's doing as a 3 and step in if you need to. And going into a game, maybe you would keep JJ as the number 2 and Carson doesn't dress or whatever. But JJ would finish the game if someone got injured. But if it's a long-term injury, I'd be willing to bet, that would be Carson Wentz starting long-term at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be like, hey, JJ's our backup. Kyler's out the next month. JJ's still our backup. I don't buy that would be the case. But I don't have a problem with them still saying he's the backup and he gets backup reps today against the Ravens and he starts on Saturday, things like that. Who cares? Because he needs the work. But if it's middle of October and you need someone for 4 games, I'm sorry, JJ, you're still the backup, but you're the backup to Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I don't think the Vikings are quite Super Bowl winning team, but I think they are in win now mode. So I agree with you. I think they'd have to do that with Wentz, and he's got to be the guy that you got to believe can win ball games for you. JJ is still an unknown.
Yeah, that would be if how it impacts JJ and his, like I've always said, if a guy can't handle the truth, then he's not your quarterback anyways.
Right. On the defensive side of the ball, one of the disappointments for me was to see how much the defensive interior line struggled, particularly Caleb Banks. He looked a bit rusty. I know he hasn't played in game action for some times, for a long time because of his foot problems. But the good news was he came out of there and his foot's still intact. The bad news is he looked overmatched, I think, a lot of times in that game.
Well, yeah, I mean, for him, what we thought and what we're getting is a bonus because he's actually on the field. Didn't think that would happen with the 2 breaks and the timing and everything. But yeah, I think I've said it before on here. He just reminds me of there's like a big puppy out there. He's gonna, he has the ability to do a lot of things because he's just a big puppy, but he doesn't really know how to direct all of that size and strength and everything yet. And his first year in the NFL could be productive, but I don't think it's going to be, if his foot holds up and he's got the heart to do it. His rookie year, we'll look back on his rookie year and go, wow, because right now he doesn't look like he's in the best of shape. He doesn't look like he's in, although he's big and strong and everything, he's not going to be what he is in a couple years, I don't think. You'll see Dallas, like a Dallas Turner transition on him, but it'll be even more noticeable, I think.
So
year 2, year 3. So right now he's just big and unrefined, and he didn't have it. He had a very unrefined type of game where it was, he was just, there's a lot that he can learn from that game because of, and to me, by being the size that he is and the height that he is, he's going to have to play low. And I think he could get by with a lot of things playing higher in college. But the NFL, those guys are going to get underneath him, and it doesn't matter how big you are. If you lose the leverage at the line of scrimmage, you're going to end up getting pushed around, which he did get kind of pushed around.
An unrefined performance. That's a good adjective, Mark. And I have to save that one. I mean, that's not going to get you in trouble. So
yeah, that's I'll put that in my word salad that I can. We need to work on being more refined. We looked unrefined.
Anyone else out there that you saw performances that worth talking about? Offense, defense, anybody? I mean, we're going to talk about a couple more as we go forward. But anything come to mind? Nothing. If not, we'll go to a break.
Well, I think you're going to mention him here in a little bit, but the kicker's a robot, Joe. I mean, the man's never going to miss ever again.
Okay, that's our tease for the next segment. So we're going to take another quick break, and we will come back with the final segment of Vikings Territory Breakdown. Okay, folks, welcome back to Vikings Territory Breakdown. Couple things left remaining that we saw in the game. Max Brosmer hurt his wrist, and Wentz came back into the game to finish it. Do you know anything about that injury? And do you know that they need to get another fourth quarter back just for a camp body or something for if Brosmer can't go? What do we know?
I think we'll learn more today. I think there would have been one come in by now. Heading into these scrimmages, but or the joint practices. But yeah, I think we'll learn more about that. We couldn't finish the game, so obviously something there.
Well,
that's a huge blow for him because
it is.
Well, you just cannot. I mean, JJ can't afford to get injured, but this guy really can't afford to be injured.
You're being nicer to Max than you are to JJ for taking himself out of the game last year.
JJ needed to be in that game.
Had to bring up that old chestnut for Mark. He teased it last segment. Will the Thrill Riker picks up right where he left off last season with 2 field goals. I think his first one was like mid-30s, 35-yarder, and then he hit a 54-yarder. And it's like I know it's preseason, but he's in there, and it's like we're got so much scar tissue in this state, in this fandom for kickers. I just looked at him. He's going to make this. I never for a minute didn't think he would make the kick. And he just goes up there and smooths it right through. He's got a new guy holding for him, but he's still money, isn't he?
Yeah, as money as preseason can get, but yeah, he definitely Thorson now because Thorson the punter rookie punter, he was best punter in college football last year, but he didn't hold, and I think they addressed that really well on the telecast. Is that they had the quarterbacks hold, which to me is a kind of a disservice to punters because especially if a guy has an NFL future, I think you should teach your punter how to do it because you're hurting his future because I don't see a scenario as good as Brett Thorson could punt, have a great preseason, but do you really want a rookie holder in pressure situation with that kicker? That kicker is your best player. He's your all pro. He's your money. I mean, especially if you're still trying to find your quarterback and you can't afford to have a bad kicker. Nobody can really.
Yeah.
I it's a competition, I guess. But to me, it's like, I want a veteran holding, that
So
ball.
well, speaking of the punting game, I felt like there's no blood at this point. Each kicker had 3 kicks. Thorson kicked for a few more yards than Hecker, but Hecker had 1 touch or 2 touchbacks versus one for Thorson, so that's probably why he kicked more. Not touchbacks, but inside the 20-yard line. And Thorson had the longest at 50 yards. Hecker's was a 44-yarder. So you not only want it, but do you see Hecker getting this job as the punter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that players ever make a call, but the kicker might make that call. Granted, he made a preseason one, but that to me is a hard. I understand why they let Ryan Wright go to New Orleans. He made a ton of money that they didn't feel that he was, that they could afford to sink into him because of all the money they spent the year before or wasted the year before. So you let him go, and I think you need a veteran to keep that because you got the best long snapper in the game, you got the best kicker in the game. Do you want a rookie in between them?
Yeah,
I don't. I don't, and I don't think they're in a position where a money position where you're like, well, we got to save money on Hecker and go with this rookie. I don't think that they would do that. So I would think I'd be surprised if Hecker's not the punter.
Yeah. I guess I did want to ask you. Did you the after our podcast last week, the depth chart came out, and I didn't really find it myself. But did you see any surprises on the depth chart for you, or how they had people listed?
No, and some of that stuff. There's been coaches that have had the PR guy fill it out. I don't know that happens here, but I just don't know that. Sometimes surprises are, but nothing. I said it really quickly. Nothing jumped out.
Okay.
What about you? Anything? I don't
No,
know.
no. I guess I was surprised at how much Claiborne played because, I mean, Xavier Scott didn't really get a lot ahead of him, so I was surprised at that. I guess they're really trying to find out what they can see with him and what he can do.
Oh yeah. Claiborne's he's going to be your third running back. You don't cut him because I think he would be a guy that probably someone else would pick up.
Right.
Scott could be a guy that you could put on your practice squad or whatever. Scott will probably get more carries in this game. There's a competition there, but I think Claiborne wins it unless he gets hurt or has 3 fumbles or something like that. But he to me is clearly your third back and has the potential. As good as Scott was, and last year he came out of nowhere and you turned some heads and you're like, yeah, that. But he doesn't have the talent and the speed that this kid does, and the potential. The ceiling is so much higher with Claiborne than Scott.
All right, well, that's mostly the past we've been talking about. Let's talk about the future. The Vikings, Baltimore Ravens begin joint practices today here at TCO. And I made this joke to myself. It's probably not that funny. If this is a bruising affair, you'd never be able to tell because both teams wear purple. Ha, 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 ha. Purple bruising.
You're a genius, Joe.
Yes, that's right. But that's what I'll be looking for, just if I can see any bruises. But what will you be looking for in the 2 scrimmages this week?
I am doing something on Caleb Banks, kind of focusing on him
Oh
and
my.
seeing the first, seeing his, obviously we saw him in a preseason game, but to see him, you won't see him against the Tyler Linderbaum, who's, got a gazillion dollars to go to the Raiders, their starting center, the all pro center. But, Baltimore's still a physical team. They pride themselves on, physicality and everything. So, that's what I'm looking at. But, obviously, offensive line. How's the offensive line do? The trenches are kind of where my eyes go, and also, you know, not maybe not the quarterbacks. Looking at Kyler, and Kyler for me is just a hard guy to watch in practice because so much of his game, doesn't come through in practice. It just doesn't because they blow the whistle before
Right.
his spotlight goes on. It's already whistle's already been blown.
So being out at TCO is the thing to see because we're not going to see Kyler and much of the first team on Saturday, will we?
I don't. They haven't made an announcement. I don't know. Boy, that's in the old days it'd be like one series, the first, and then you'd play first half and maybe
Yep.
come out of half. Well, they don't do that anymore.
Right.
But I don't know if we'll. I think if you want to look at, it's not a competition anymore, but do you put JJ with some ones? It's a tough one.
I don't know that
I would have Kyler play. I'd have him play another series.
if
Why
Kyler
not?
doesn't play, I would like to see him have another series because that's all we have so far as that one. But I don't want him if they're not playing the 5 offensive linemen, and I don't want
No, they wouldn't do. They would never. No, they would never do that.
No.
If he plays, the offense plays, except for, I could see them playing the first teamers, but not Jones, not Jefferson.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we will see.
Something to look forward to. Yeah, I just want maybe with JJ getting the start, which I think will happen, he can settle in maybe and know right away that he's not under this pressure cooker. I got to do something now. Because I don't think his mind needs any more stress pile on top of it. If he can just slowly get into the game, maybe that he'll look a little better this week. I'm hoping.
He just needs opportunities to get better, and whether like I said, you don't get rid of him, but you got to keep working with him. And Connell is a good guy that can do that, and so maybe have something click, because who knows you have no idea how next year's going to look, and he could be the starter next year still.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a little time left here, and Mike Woldemar, producer, gave me a list of these questions that a reader sent in. I wish I had his name. I'll have to get it for next time. But I thought I'd ask Mark a little bit, and I went down his list, and I said, this guy is. I think he might not be afraid to wager from once, because I look at the questions and it looks like something that you can bet on, like Justin Jefferson plus or minus 1,399 receiving yards. How do you think Justin Jefferson will do this year?
Well, I think it's minus because of I should go back and say JJ could be the starter week 2, injury wise. Kyler Murray's not a very durable guy either. So I would go minus, but it's no fault of Jefferson's. I think it's more of the quarterback. If he's with Joe Burrow, I'd say above, but I'm going below 13.99.
How about plus or minus receiving touchdowns for Jefferson? They got it. This guy's got it set at, or maybe it is at 7.5. Last year he had 2, so I'm not sure. I think my grandson would be happy about that question, but go ahead. Tell me what you got.
7.5. I'm going to go below just because I gotta, I just gotta see them. I gotta see this team do something before I, put. Although 7.5, that's a hard one to go. I'll go below.
What do you say about Dallas Turner and double-digit sacks? Will he get there this year? I gotta believe he will.
We had late 8 last year.
Yeah. They don't have
Yeah,
a third.
I'll give him double digits. That's a hard one too.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a big. He's just not. He's on his way, but he's not Grenard. But yeah, I'll say yes. I'll say 10 sacks.
I like this question. Who will have more TDs? Uh, Justin Jefferson or TJ Hawkinson and Juwan combined? Juwan Jennings combined. Got so many TJs and JJs. I don't even know who he's talking about. Justin Jefferson or a combination of TJ plus Juwan Jennings. Who has more touchdowns?
Me going under on the touchdowns. I should go over here, but TJ doesn't find the end zone anymore. I think maybe with Kyler, TJ gets more involved. So I'll go Jawan and TJ with more, I guess. This is not also, again, it's not a knock on Jefferson. It's more the quarterback, and it's also the attention that Jefferson gets. Now, these guys may get more touchdowns because Jefferson's getting more attention.
Mm-hmm. There's been talk about online that Vikings could possibly be, the competitive NFC North. They could possibly have 4 teams in the playoffs this year. I don't see that happening because there's other good teams in the NFC, and these teams all have to play each other. But this viewer is asking the Lions' record, Bears' record, and Packers' record. What do you see them as this season? No idea. I'm sure that's something we probably have.
I mean, traditionally it's kind of. I'm not saying completely flip it over from last year, but that's what you see a lot. The Lions, had the worst record, or they were 4th in the division last year, but they were 9-8.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Lions. I don't think they stay down. I don't know that the Bears stay on top. So. Yeah, they're all going to be right in there. But if you say that all 4 make the, you're saying that in the West, that
right.
Rams or Seattle's not going to make it. I have a hard time picturing that.
That's a good point.
To me, it's going to be fun to watch. But I put the Vikings 4th right now just because I got to see the quarterback. I got to see it all come together, and that's not. You put them 4th there is sort of like putting the Lions 4th last year. It's like that doesn't. You're like this far from the top. You're on the bottom, but you're like an inch from the top.
You got the Vikings at 4th right now. Is that what you said?
If I haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about it, but I got to believe and also a big thing with the 3rd or 4th because I think the Packers missing Micah Parsons for up to 6 weeks. They're talking about him maybe not coming back till week 7 against the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, we saw how different that team was with and without him.
Right.
So
they also have the Josh Jacobs situation that needs to be rectified. There hasn't been any announcement of a suspension for his off-field peccadillo. And they got Tucker Kraft, who I think is going to come back for the first, should be back for the first game of the season, which is against the Vikings.
So. I mean, so last year the Bears were 1 and the Lions were 4.
Right.
Could easily see that flipped over. I'm not ready to crown the Bears for the next 5 years. They had a nice turnaround. Their quarterback is taking them places where they may not have been in a long, long time. But it's still, they went worst to first. It happens all the time. Happens multiple times every year. This division is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It is. I really still have the Bears still up on the top this year. I think Caleb Williams is maybe even going to take another leap. He's finally got a really good coach who he can work with and learn with, and he's got another season under. It'll be a second season under Ben Johnson's offense. So I see them as being tough and hanging on to first place.
It comes with a first place schedule.
That's true.
It comes with a lot more primetime games, and frankly, comes with a lot more pressure. Can they can they hold up to that? I don't know. I see them sliding back. I see the Lions going forward. I see the Packers having to, weather a storm in there, and I see the Vikings as a wild card that, just could be anything. They could, we could take the Vikings and say, hey, they're an ace or they're a 2.
Well, what's their record going to be? Because I got my annual bet with my cousin, and he's got the he lost last year, so he gets to go first, and he's picking the Vikings at 11-6. It would be their record. And do I go above or upper, over or under on that?
I would go under on that.
I hate doing that with the Vikings because I am a Vikings Bobo, but
I would go under on that. But if you go under on that, they could still have a good year. 10 wins is nothing to sneeze at. 9 wins, even if they won 9 wins again, I don't know.
They better win. I just want them to improve on last year's record for starters,
or just be in the hunt past. Last year's record is, it's a sort of a tribute to O'Connell for holding the team together, but they got eliminated so early, and you want to see them in the hunt.
That was difficult. Well, on that note, we got to get out of here. Mark's got to get out to TCO to watch those to watch the practice between the Ravens and the Vikings today, and there'll be plenty of news coming out of TCO Performance Center today and tomorrow with that going on. But so thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mike Woldham. Thanks, Joe Johnson, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week to talk about the Ravens and Vikings joint practices and preseason games. So you'll have to watch all that. Until then, thanks and skol.